figure out who we wanted to recruit to the university. And by doing that, we looked at the population. Right? We looked at the population of Virginia, of the country, of the world, and then we looked at the population of the university. And we said, well, where are our holes? Where's our gap? And one of the gaps when I was there was low-income women. We were doing just fine on middle-class women from Northern Virginia and middle-class women from San Francisco and all sorts of places. But one place we were struggling was recruiting and retaining low-income women. So we sat down and we tried to figure out why that was. And we spent a lot of time. We surveyed and we surveyed and we surveyed. And ultimately, we found out that they were worried about leaving home. And they felt like Charlottesville might be a little too far away for them from their homes where they were raised. And so at the university, one thing that we did was we put into place a mentoring program where women, when they came in, they were paired with an upper-class woman who was able to sort of shepherd them through their time at the university. And this made all the difference in terms of attracting and retaining young women from diverse parts of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so this is a place where I've been proud to also work when I was working in the private sector. We invested at a firm that I worked at. We invested in a fund that invested in women money managers. So this was there's a theory in investing that women are much better investors than men, and it turns out that's not just a theory; it's true. And so we made sure that we were investing in female money managers so that not only could we invest in women in their careers, but also it was good for everybody. It was good for clients.
Well, to me, the word feminist simply means that I should have equal rights. That's all it means. I am the granddaughter. My grandmother was a suffragette. I have a photograph of her having a picnic in the grounds of Mount Vernon exactly 100 years ago with her suffragette pals. I think that I was one of the first women to go to Yale. I was in the second class, and we fought very hard for women's rights. When I was a senior in college, it was the first year a woman could get a loan without it being co-signed by a man. It was the first year a woman could get a credit card without it being co-signed by a man. What that meant is that women couldn't get loans to start businesses on their own without asking the permission of a man. So we have come a long way, but I have some fantastic daughters and now some fantastic granddaughters, but it's very, very important to me that they have that the rights that we fought very hard to achieve, that my granddaughters can enjoy those rights. And in my career, I worked, it's a tough business, the sort of journalism I was in. I was doing that kind of war coverage. I had to fight hard to do those stories. And finally, they just said, okay, you're really good at it. You go for it. We won't even ask you what you're doing. But I think that breaking through all of those things has been very, very important to me. And I see, as a woman, I can see certain issues that on the Hill I would really jump into. And for example, sexual assault issues in the military. We need serious reform there, and I would join a group of women in Congress to do that. So there are many women's issues that I care about.
Thank you. Well, I went to college in Montana, and Montana was the first state. I was really proud when I was there in college. Montana was the first state to elect a woman to Congress, to the United States House of Representatives. And they did it in 1918, a year before my favorite amendment to the Constitution, which is the 19th Amendment. Now, the fact that the 19th Amendment is my favorite amendment to the Constitution alone does not make me a feminist, or does not prove my bona fides as a feminist. What does is when, people used to say Bill Clinton was the first black president. Okay, then Obama was the first woman president, because he did more for women in his 8 years than anybody else in the history of the United States. And I voted for him twice. Now that also, those two things alone don't make me a feminist. What really makes me a feminist is how active I got in 2009 in the off-year election, 2010, the midterm, which happened to be the lowest turnout in the history of the United States, 2014 when I ran. I was out there talking about how we have a lack of turnout, and that low turnout is always favors men getting elected. And that's why, we have to do something to be vocal about whether we're men or women elected to Congress. We have to start talking about the whole issue of gender parity and why we're so far behind the rest of the world. I went to Nicaragua in 2012. They have 50% of their elected legislature are women. Nicaragua, they've had a woman president. Other countries have had women presidents. What is so wrong about the United States? Well, we incarcerate the most people, we have the lowest voter turnout, and we have the most money in politics. There you go. Thank you.
I am absolutely a feminist, and I look at this statement that you say Trump made, and it doesn't surprise me one bit that Tom Garrett looks at him as such a hero. Because Tom Garrett, when I saw what he did and the way he behaved with Jane here, Ditmar the last time, he is not only not a feminist, but he is a misogynist. And he is condescending in every way, and it infuriated me. I grew up on a farm where when I was about 15, my parents divorced and sold every single piece of equipment we had at an auction to try to pay off a debt. And it wasn't enough. And when we were done, my mother set me down, my mother who had never worked outside the home in her life, and told me, it is not okay for you to see me not pay this debt, because we owe it to the Gemine Hearts for the seed supply and the tractor supply and everybody here in town. And so my mother took a job during the day at the bank, and she worked a second job at night out at Casey's on the highway at a convenience store, just so she could show me her values. And then later on in life, my mother, who I knew more than anything wanted to be a farmer, that's what she cared about more than anything, struggled to get a toehold. And the misogyny that she faced every single day, and still to this day, I hear the whispers when I'm home, people talking about my mother. And I'm going to tell you something. She owns that farm. She runs that farm. She owns the combine. She writes the check for that combine. And when you come from something like this, if you're not a feminist, you are not paying attention. Thank you all.
You all have exercised remarkable restraint. So let's give all of these candidates a warm round of applause. You all to give 1 minute closings, and when you are closing, if you could please help us understand why we should caucus for you specifically. I think that would be helpful for people in the room.
Just a quick, if you are still wanting to learn about the caucus process, which would be a very obvious thing, there's some one-pagers in the back. It's a confusing process, but we're doing our best to try and help you understand it, and all of us understand it, so grab a document on your way out.
Everything wasn't great when we were growing up all the time. We lived in Section 8 housing for a time. My parents struggled with substance abuse, and my dad passed away from an Oxycontin overdose. And sometimes I struggle about how much to share about this, but the first time I ever shared it, not 2 minutes later, a fellow Virginian said, "My dad died of an Oxycontin overdose too." I think you should caucus for me because I have a positive vision for the 5th District of Virginia, and I still believe in America. Now, we have big problems in this country, and we got to make sure people are treated equally. But I believe that my jobs plan will make sure that people from every zip code in this district can get a job in the changing economy and have control of their own destiny. And that's what I'm going to fight for every day should you make me your congressman. Thank you.
As I told you at the beginning here, I was born in the 5th District of Virginia. I was raised in Virginia. I'm raising my family here. And I'm asking for your support, and in order to do that, I feel like it's worth sharing with you how I feel like you should evaluate me, so that when I come back and ask for your vote again in 2 years, you'll have something to say. My vision of success in this job is not going to Washington and being on cable news. That's not why I'm applying for this job. I'm applying for this job because I want to, every week, I want to do something that makes life better for folks back home. And so when I get to every Friday and I'm headed back home from Washington, I want to be able to say, what did I do this week to make healthcare a little bit more affordable and a little bit better for people in the 5th District? What did I do to help bring good, high-paying jobs to the district? And what did I do to make sure that our education system was just a little bit better? And if at the end of every week I can say I did something to that effect, then I'll feel like I've been successful.
You should caucus for me and my campaign because I'm a woman, and 2018 is the year of the woman in politics in this country. We have a tidal wave of women coming in, who will be coming in. I live in a rural county, and that's important because we have a rural district. 21 counties are rural, and I do understand a lot of the problems that people are facing, and there's no difference between Rappahannock County and a lot of the South Side counties. In terms of going up against Garrett, I have a background of very, very tough investigative journalism. I was one of the people who helped break the Iran-Contra scandal. I've gone up against the Colombian cocaine cartels, the Italian mafia. I'm the only journalist who sat with Saddam's sons. I've been really up against people, and people in our own government, who really want to lie and not tell you what's going on in government, and gone up against those people and had those fights. I've gone up against the Republican Party, and I know how nasty it can get, and we need someone with that experience, and also who has some international and national experience as well. Thank you.
Well, you may not have to worry about it with me, because the Democratic Party has just instituted a huge filing fee that I don't think I'll be able to cover at this point. I don't know if I'll even come up with it by next week. And that's unfortunate, because when I ran in 2014, the filing fee was like $500, and that's all I had in my checking account, and I paid it, and I ended up winning the nomination because of ideas, because of what I stood for. And I did win the nomination then, but I don't know about this time. If I don't make it to May, I would vote for whoever up here has the least amount of money, because all of these people up here are qualified. I'm serious. I mean, all four of these other candidates are highly qualified. You know, and I'm serious. If we want to get money out of politics, we've got to stop paying lip service to it. We've got a 20-year track record of people saying they're going to get money out of politics, but then they run huge, big money campaigns. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. I humbly ask that you caucus for me, because I believe that I give us the best chance to beat Tom Garrett. And at the end of the day, that is really the thing that matters. And I will echo what he just said. I believe that whomever it is would be on this panel would be so much better than Tom Garrett, and I will fight like a dog for them if that's what they ask me to do, because I believe my kids' future and their lives are at stake. The reason that I believe I give us the best chance is because of where I came from and those values that I learned. It is important for us to talk about our progressive values in every single part of this rural district. That's what Tom Perriello knew. That's why he won. And that is what I intend to do. And not only intend to do it, but from my heart, because of where I grew up. I mean, Charlottesville and Albemarle are my home, and they're wonderful. The only place my kids will ever call home. That they were born here. But we don't win this district just in Charlottesville and Albemarle. We have to meet people and talk about our values, our progressive values, and why they're best for their communities in their communities. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all again so much for coming. Thank you to these candidates for spending this time with us. We really, really appreciate it. Before you leave, I want to introduce Ian McNally